Hello there, Commonwealth from here, and after you voted overwhelmingly to have more of Kakariko on Death Mountain, I brought back Joey. Personally, I don't think there's so much that can be really changed in a remake when it comes to Kakariko Village. The side quests, the fact that it was an open space more than we saw in the case of the Castle Town, and of course we had the Graveyard, which did a very good role both in the child and adult sections of the game, including with both the Bottom of the Well and the Shadow Temple.
They could include more NPCs to make it feel more lived in per se, but other than that, I have to agree with you, there's not really much I feel like they could improve. I just think of like in the visual sense, because there's the Graveyard, which can be enhanced to look more creepy, and of course the house with the family that's been cursed by the Golden Skulltulas. Oh man, I can't imagine what that would look like in this remake.
There's definitely horror potential in Kakariko Village with a remake. You need to maintain that identity of this place before you start your walk up towards Death Mountain Trail on the way up to Goron City. Death Mountain Trail wasn't really long in Ocarina of Time. Is there any point expanding it though? Because it is such a rocky and hilly section. Some of its charm is the fact that you get so quickly to Goron City, meet Darunia there, and then you have to make your way back to Lost Woods. So I think expanding Death Mountain Trail might not be something that you really want to do. If you want to expand it, you need to do it in places that make sense. You don't want to create filler sections like we saw in Final Fantasy VII Remake, which just felt like endless stretches of walking without any added meaning or depth to it.
And this is always the case for any remake. Like, if you change too much, you run the risk of people saying it's not the same, but then if you don't remake it enough, they'll be like, it's a little too the same, so it's a catch-22 there. I think keep the length, keep the distance, the amount of time it takes to get from Kakariko to Death Mountain. Maybe include better enemy variety in this section, kind of make that trek up the mountain feel more like it's an actual trek.
The variety there wasn't much. It was mostly Tektites. And you know the Zelda games, when you think Tektites, you think water. Question is, could they maybe add some other enemies? Because of course Ocarina of Time, unlike Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, does have Dodongos. But those are reserved for Dodongo's Cavern. And I think it should stay that way. But we had some interesting enemies, like with the Rock Octoroks and their catapultings plus choo-choos. By doing that, you can create something that is an experience of itself before reaching Goron City. In a sense, I think Goron City is another example of a settlement that is very good as it is. Maybe have a little bit more like, shops, activities, because it didn't feel like lived in to the same point that certain other locations did. Of course, they do roll around, but it's like they don't have their own space in a way. It didn't feel like you had your own areas. I feel like with Goron City, there's some room to, if not expand, then maybe divide it up a little bit. There's one circular area, and then at the bottom layer in order to open up the path into Darunia, and then learn that, you actually need to know Zreo's song from the Lost Woods right next to the entrance of the Forest Temple in order to enter there. Like, this is the great thing about Ocarina, it's so well paced, and if there's one thing you don't want to mess with it, and I know we've said this already, you don't want to mess with the pacing, because that is the by far strongest thing that has stood the test of time when it comes to this game. It's okay to have a 3D Zelda game that is a little bit shorter, because you just want to have an experience that doesn't drag on. And that is something that I think could be the strongest suit to not change in an Ocarina of Time remake. If you can manage it correctly, you are going to end up with a game that is true to the original, but improves where it is possible to improve by adding quality to the game.
Absolutely, and because the game is so well paced, that's why a remake like this is challenging. And I really feel like when it comes to settlements like Goron City, visually enhance it some more with that, add more NPCs, stuff like that, like I just mentioned with Kakariko Village. Yeah, I think that I can make that case for a lot of the future settlements that we're going to talk about here in this series. But
the question is, what should be the case above Goron City? So on the path up to the crater, because we know it is a volcano. It's a massive volcano, and the question is if this upper section should allow us to walk around it like a proper mountain inside the crater itself until to enter the fire temple in the adult section. When it comes to the surroundings, because the way you were climbing in the child section or in Ocarina of Time in general was literally ladders. Question is if in the remake they will kind of make the circular area around the crater explorable. I actually could see this as one of the potential areas where we could be able to climb, Joey, because if we look at the map from 1998, we can see that it literally slides down to Hyrule Castle right below. And on the other side, you see a river coming from around the northern side of Death Mountain, the area that we never are able to explore in both Ocarina of Time from 1998 and Ocarina of Time 3D.
This area makes the most sense for having climbable surfaces, of course, because it is a mountain, because the city itself is definitely like a vertical based city, as we can see. Even like just like having easier access to Hyrule Castle or even Lake Hylia through that river would do wonders for like backtracking and such. I know there is a fast travel feature that's unlocked later with the Ocarina, but yeah, that's kind of another way to make this an open air experience while not making it like extremely open air, if that makes sense.
Death Mountain felt very limited because of the system limitations at the time, while here you have a chance to really create something that is more of an open space when you go above Goron City. Because some will mistake and think, oh, you can just walk and climb up any side you want from Kakariko. No, that's not what we want. What we would want, if it is of course possible, would be that you can of course walk up the path that you would do, and that will probably still be the entrance down to the later fire temple, but also be able to explore around. And maybe there could be some, I don't know, treasure hidden around, or finding the spring that will allow us to, as you said, go down the entire river, past Gerudo Valley's bridge, or underneath it specifically in this case, and then down to Lake Hylia. As we know from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, the mountain areas themselves don't have that much to offer, but this is like perfect locations for like new mini games, for example. And these are kind of innocent things because you don't mess with the main quest line. You add more fun activities and side quests. And I feel like that is the things that you can really do with this remake. Like, I'm not asking for shield surfing down Death Mountain or anything, but I'm just asking to be able to, you know, explore the areas a little bit more. Just like we have gotten used to in the Zelda games of our age. Even to an extent, as we saw in Echoes of Wisdom with the Death Mountain. And there too we had a Goron settlement after all. So I feel like there's a lot that can be done to add to the Death Mountain area in general, because Kakariko, good as it is, as you said, bring a little bit more life to it in terms of NPCs, especially in the adult section. But when it comes to the child section, I see definitely potential in Death Mountain by making it more of an explorable territory, and where you can sort of get from one point to another in this major map, and also that way making it not fully open world but more open world like.
Right. It's easy to forget that Ocarina of Time is one of the first 3D games. As a result, there are a lot of limitations in that game, like not just visually but level design wise. I'm sure they wanted it to be much more explorative than it turned out to be, and what they were able to get away with back then was still very impressive. So a remake like this on the Switch 2 can kind of have that element more realized, better realized, without making it a completely open experience. Just for example, like we're getting the remake of Assassin's Creed Black Flag resynced. They're not changing too much about that game except its visuals, and the entire world is seamless now. I feel like that's kind of like the ideal scenario for Ocarina of Time as well. They're changing not much, but they're also changing a lot. What little they're changing is changing so much about how this game is played, making the controls easier, making everything just flow better in that regard, maybe even improving upon the combat. The idea of that remake with the Assassin's Creed just makes me think about what possibilities Ocarina of Time has in that respect.
The best way of putting it is that where they should be expanding and adding is in the open areas that were already there in 1998. We have already brought up Hyrule Field with the potential of adding something to the south in the direction of not Lake Hylia, but to the very edge of the map, really. Maybe also Lake Hylia, something we'll get back to when we talk about the Zoras and their activities in Hyrule, and of course the Gerudo as well. Castletown could also get this open world experience by adding those areas that we see on this map and making the whole town accessible in chronological order based on how you progress. You have Hyrule Field, Hyrule Castletown, vicinity of Death Mountain, above Goron City, Lake Hylia, and the Gerudo Desert area. Those are the areas where there's potential for open world gameplay and open world mechanic, while the others I think should become more traditional. This is how you create a good compromise between new and old in an Ocarina of Time remake. Since you didn't vote for Zora's Domain, we'll do that one next. And leave your thoughts about Ocarina of Time Remake and the area of Kakariko Village, the graveyard, the trail up to Death Mountain, and of course Death Mountain itself in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and press that notification bell. Last but not least, a big thanks to you for watching, and to all our patreon.com/CommonRealm patrons. Special shoutouts go to our heroes, Cheryl, Garrett Hoy, Holly Wolf, and Kintaro. You rock, and please enjoy these awesome videos.